Angela Bern here with Interviews with Friends and Enemies, and we're here with interview number 4, Direwolf Omega, and we're here at his amazing Georgetown studios. Georgetown has been the up-and-coming, actually it already came, it's not up-and-coming, it's already here. Georgetown is the art Mecca of Seattle at this point. So Direwolf has created these 2 amazing container studios that are works of art on their own. So he is an artist, a jewelry maker, designer, performance artist, dancer. What doesn't he do? So come with me as we meet Direwolf Omega. Let's meet Direwolf. Nice! Hi, good to see you. Let's have a hug. Okay, I'm so excited for our interview. I'm excited for people to get to know more about you. So here we go. Hi, Angela Bern here again with Interviews with Friends and Enemies. And as promised, we are here with Direwolf Omega in his beautiful artistic lair of a studio and gallery. So let's get to know a little more about Direwolf now. All right, we're gonna dig straight in. So for you, what would you say has been one of your greatest successes as an individual as opposed to professionally with all of the things that you do individually, one of your greatest successes?
I would say that it's probably the endeavor in which I designed who I wanted to be, and my success was where I actually became that being.
Ah, so you began creating and fashioning yourself, would you say? Is that a good description?
Yes.
Yeah. So how did you model yourself?
It started when I was about 9 years old. I used to have nightmares constantly, and they tormented me. And I think subconsciously, I created this character. The character was the Dream Warrior, and the Dream Warrior couldn't be tormented by these beings because he was stronger than they were. And when I became a lucid dreamer, I became capable of controlling the dreams, and I became the Dream Warrior.
Wow.
Once I was able to control them, I then realized that I could go to places that I had created in my waking.
Yeah. That I love the idea and have for a long time of lucid dreaming. It's fun to get to talk with someone who was aware of that experience, whether you called it lucid dreaming at 9. I'm not sure. Yeah, I wouldn't imagine, but it's beautiful that you experienced that, and it sounds like out of your fears, it's kind of like the phoenix, it's like out of your fears came this strength, and you began to fashion and create your way of being, right? If you're open to letting me know and us know, what are a couple of characters or a couple of things that you drew from to create yourself?
Well, to be honest with you, the traits, or the collection of them rather, isn't totally altruistic. It isn't totally noble. I wanted to be a character that had scars, that had grit, that had trials and tribulations that he had overcome.
Yeah.
And so early on, I wanted to be an outlaw. I wanted to be a rebel. I wanted to be fierce. I had this warrior mentality. Later on, I realized that art was my spirit.
When? Okay, wait. When do you remember how old from the 9 to?
Well, the nightmares also drove me to start drawing, to release the visions from my mind. And I don't think it was until I was about 14 that I realized that it was a truly significant part of me. It was something that I needed to do, not just drawing, but creating.
Yeah.
Is when I realized that I had been creating all along.
Right.
And it was something that I needed to do.
Yeah, you were you were creating in so many ways, and creating yourself and creating either two-dimensional works. Did you start out with two-dimensional works, or did you work with
I began cerebrally, I suppose. And before I really started drawing, I was imagining. I mean, I didn't have toys or a television or anything, so I would create these narratives in my mind, these characters that would interact with each other. And whenever I learned, so the first things I learned were anthropology and foreign culture. I was homeschooled. So all of that information informed my story weaving.
Yeah.
And I realized that there was something special to it when I gained the ability to go to those places that I had created in the dreams that I could control.
Yeah. That would be, it's kind of amazing. It's like you're a filmmaker and you're starring in your own film at the same time.
I mean, a lot of times I would create these interactions and these worlds, and I would only exist as an observer. Like they would rarely interact with me.
Okay.
And where it gets really strange is some of them became, I guess I could say, self-aware.
Oh, really? Some of the
Or so it
characters
seemed. Really,
they grew.
Yes, I mean, I suppose perhaps you could say that I was adding to them psycho-automatically. So I wasn't hyper-consciously aware of their changes. Because my subconsciousness had become much more complex.
Yeah. So you would occasionally then recognize that there had been a change maybe in your conscious awareness of them?
Well, they would teach me things.
What was one of the things? Do you remember? I know it's probably...
I do remember. I remember all of it. But there was one character, one of the very first I created, the Thunderhoof, he was a creator who was seen as a great creator, but in his mind he was a failure because everything he created changed and went awry from his plan. And the piece that you saw in that container, where there's the figure that's up in the air, and there's the symbols on the side, that's the moment at which he realized that he was a creation, and that it was because he gave his creations free will that they changed, and that perhaps he wasn't a failure. And this tattoo is actually a representation of his horns, which give him the power to create.
Oh, I wondered.
But he taught me many things. He taught me the power of change and taught me the importance of giving viewers and participants the power to create their own story, because that is their free will. Yeah.
Yeah, that resonates pretty strongly with me at this point. So I really appreciate that answer. That your Thunderhoof actually leads us into another question I have for you, which is, what would you say, and with you, as really with everyone, our successes and failures, right? There's a bleeding into a weaving, but in as much as you can isolate a failure of yours, something you perceive as a great failure of yours individually, what would that be?
My greatest failure, I think, is one of the many battles included in the all-encompassing perpetual battle between reason and impulse.
Yeah.
When you're young, your impulses are much more powerful, much more seductive, and your reason is less experienced. my impulses told me that following my spirit was being an outlaw.
Right.
And I was driven by delusions of grandeur. And it wasn't until I kind of got my head screwed on, so to speak, that I realized that I wasn't following my spirit.
Yeah.
I learned important lessons during that. But I consider it a failure because I was walking on a path that was paved by false pretenses.
Mm.
So, in essence, I was walking in failure.
Right.
Because I was walking in a sense of truth that was inaccurate.
Right. Well, and one that happens for, I think, so many people, and how self-aware they are of when they notice that, or how it happened, if they ever get there completely, is what separates, I think, people from understanding that there have been those major things in their life that they were as responsible for following because they were under a misguided notion, right? It's an interesting time. I can remember deciding about 12 years old that I was getting in lots of fights in school, and I can remember deciding when I moved schools that I looked around and I thought, oh, I see, the smiling people seem more fun to me. And I remember thinking, yeah, those smiling people seem like they have a lot more friends, right? I mean, that was as basic as I needed to get. But I had been and I think up until we're 8 or 9, we are so much just our inner spirit, and we're less aware of what we are to outside people. We're just kind of being more than anything.
Sure.
And then that was why I was so curious, at the intervals and the times that things changed. It's just interesting to me because there are people who, like you, make decisions that are very sort of concrete and they're aware of earlier than other people being aware of making decisions. So I always really enjoy hearing how that has happened for everyone. And for me, I changed my name. I started smiling. I said hi to people. I stopped fighting. And it worked pretty well. And you could make an argument for I might have stuffed some things under to make that move, or you could say I adjusted. Mm-hmm. So that's always, it's kind of interesting because when people hear that you were so aware of fashioning yourself, I think that's going to be compelling for people to think about how they felt, Okay, so let's just slide into, and for you, again, this is all pretty fluid as for a lot of people, but for you maybe more so because art, sculpture, dance, we talked about modeling being a way in which you perform an act of art as well, or are engaged in an act of art. Maybe, is that a good way to put it?
Sure.
Or something. Well, we can find
some of the mediums that I work through seem new to me, but I think really they're all ancient in my own experience. Fashion began when I was about 7 years old.
Oh yeah, that's early.
Yeah, I was born into sort of a cult.
Yeah.
And the children, they just had.
We could have a whole other show on this.
I'm sure you could. You had sheets to wear, and I would.
I'm hearing things and thinking. Yeah. Okay.
And it. I honestly, I never wanted to just. Never wanted to be ordinary. Ultimately, I could say I never wanted to be the same as everyone else, and I wanted to stick out. But ultimately, I think that's the best way to put it. I never wanted to be ordinary.
Yeah.
Even before I realized that.
Right. That was something you were aware of once you could notice it.
It's not something I chose. Like I often say, you don't really choose what you feel. The world would be much more simple if you could, but it's something I've always wanted. Interesting.
Yeah. So let's talk about professionally, because you're a professional artist. Mm-hmm. So in your profession, and you can choose like which avenue, but what has been a really great success of yours professionally?
Well, I know to most of the world that would be monetarily defined, but for me, the most successful part of my profession is the emotional reactions I get when people experience my work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, someone spending $1,200 on a painting is nice, but when I see someone staring at it for 10 minutes straight,
right,
and they light up like a little kid,
yeah,
it's much more authentically meaningful. You know, like that. I get the money and I spend it, I pay my bill or whatever
right,
I do, and then it's gone and I'm just thinking about the next, chunk of money. But the emotional reactions, they stay there.
right,
I don't spend them.
right.
They're with me.
Yeah.
And
they're in your savings account.
yeah. Whenever I'm doing art, and it's not always easy, obviously, in this day and age.
Right.
Doing art full time.
Right. Just saying that you're a full-time artist for people invites a certain wonder. They have a ton of questions going on that they almost don't want to ask, but they want to know, right?
The emotional reactions are basically what keep me going.
Yeah.
Among other things.
Yeah.
But when things are hard,
yeah,
when things aren't selling as much, when I have slow months, that's part of what keeps me going.
Yeah, that experience that you see people sharing with, inside. And so professionally then, what would you say has been one of your biggest failures? Greatest failure professional?
My greatest failure professionally would be not doing this sooner.
Oh.
After Cornish, there's a statistic they drive in your head that 90% of art school graduates don't do anything art related after the first 5 years. I was a cobbler. I fixed boots and bags and.
Oh.
Yeah.
So did that inform your leather making and your jewelry later?
A little. Made me a boot snob, I know that. But I had this voice in my head. I'd be like grinding a sole off of a boot. And this voice would say, "You are accomplishing nothing."
Really?
You were accomplishing nothing but a paycheck. It wouldn't leave me alone.
Yeah. Was it deep? Or high pitched?
I mean, it was more of just a presence. It had a French accent, yeah.
Did it?
No.
I hate this.
But it wouldn't leave me alone even when I was just at home trying to relax after, I worked 40 hours a week and
hello.
I was acting like I was trying to save up for traveling or whatever, but it was convenient.
Yeah.
And then I had the gym and I was exhausted and I had a girlfriend, so.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
I
spent so long without. It took me like 3 months to get one painting done.
Yeah.
And I resented it. I got really resentful and bitter. And
that's always pretty.
Yeah, I got a living stipend, and fortunately, I was awarded that based on work that I had completed, and I decided, it's now or never.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for this. And so. I found this space in Georgetown, and I saw these 2 containers, and I instantly knew that I'm going to put chains in them and hang art.
Yeah, you had the most of the visual or the sense of it already laid out when you first saw them.
As soon as I first saw them,
yeah,
yes. I knew that the chains were going to be there. All this I kind of came up with later, but
yeah. Maybe we'll pan around and you'll get to see a little bit of more of the layer when we finish too. That will be fun. It is quite a scene, people.
Don't try this at home.
Right. or make it serious. Make it serious business. What I do have to say is that I really appreciate the sort of the fierceness, and the brutality is a word I want to use because I like using strong words, and I say that because there's an elegance and sophistication and beauty that's married together in every part of and piece of. So the marriage for me, like when I see your studio, your gallery, and your work, I see those things and that continuity, like when I first asked you about your name, right? So being a circle. So I think people will be definitely interested. I don't normally ask this specific of a question, but could you just explain your name, Direwolf Omega? Because I think it's valuable.
Well, the first part, Direwolf, I had assistance with that. So
Was it divine?
I mean,
So isn't it all?
I'm not gonna use that word, but I won't dispute it. I had these dreams when I was young, and there was this giant wolf that I would see in them. And if I followed the wolf, I felt really strong and secure and certain. But if I saw him and I didn't follow him, I felt cold and uncertain. Sometimes I felt like I was sick. And I was told that was my spirit. And later on, I went on a vision quest, and I saw the same wolf. And I was told that it was a direwolf. Actually, the direwolf is a prehistoric, very large wolf. And that was my spirit. You know, you follow your spirit, you're going to be sure and strong and happy. If you don't follow your spirit, you're going to be cold and uncertain.
Yeah, which is a beautiful way for anyone to...
And so I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it until I found myself incarcerated, and I embraced it then.
Yeah.
And people started calling me Direwolf, and it felt more natural than anything else. And I've always been deeply obsessed with symmetry. And symmetry, it's not just something being aesthetically even, it's also balance. It's elegance, it's proportion. So if you have a beginning, you have to have an end. The direwolf was the first wolf, and Omega is the end. Omega will endure long after Alpha is deceased.
And Omega being a man or a person, or not?
Well, for me, it transcends that. The dire wolf isn't even so much an animal.
Right.
It's a beginning.
Yeah.
It's an origin.
Yeah.
As a creator, you know, you prize originality. You prize starting something. And
I say that. Let's start something.
Omega is a longevity. It's what made it last. It's what made the origin last until the end. Perhaps it's a subconscious obsession with immortality.
Okay, I like it. I'm thinking that I'd like to know a little bit about what might make someone perceive you as an enemy.
Miscommunication, them creating a story in their head about me. Now that's an interesting thing, because on one hand, I've made a career out of giving people the ability to create their own stories. But someone creating their own story about me before they know me could result in something negative, like them assuming that I am an abrasive assume I'm a prick.
Right.
And so a lot of people are rather shocked to learn that I can actually be quite friendly.
Yeah. Well, so what would make someone consider you a friend? Not just friendly, but a friend.
Somebody who knows me, someone who's in my circle.
Yeah.
I mean,
What quality would someone in your circle say makes you their friend? Like if there was one or two quick qualities.
Being present, genuine, just maybe reliable.
Yeah. Those are present, genuine, reliable. That's a top 3 for anyone, I think. All right. Yeah. Good. Okay. Okay, so we're going to move into the next portion of our interview. and this is where I get to ask you somewhere around 20 questions, and your job is to try to give me one-word answers.
Okay.
Just do the best you can. It's meant to be a way to show people.
One-word answer.
I know. Everyone has trouble. I don't have a buzzer, but I'll coax and guide you. We'll work through this together. Okay, so.
Just check everything. Okay, action.
Okay, so now comes the fun part. This is where I get to ask you about 20 questions, and your job is to give me one-word answers, best of your ability. Okay, no buzzer, like I said. All right, so number one. I just wanted to wait to make you nervous. Okay, what is your greatest fear? One word.
Self.
Oh, I love it. Okay, what makes you feel warm, sappy, good? Sweet.
Affection.
Nice. Who is one of your favorite people? Want to come back to it?
Imagine.
Imagine, okay. Rather fly or be able to exist underwater?
Fly.
Okay. Do you practice a religion?
Art.
All right. How do you relax? You're doing a good job trying to give me the one word.
Rise.
Rise. Wow, I like it. Okay. Mama's boy, daddy's boy?
Neither.
I was expecting that. Okay. How old were you for your first romantic kiss?
11.
Did you like it?
Wasn't sure what was happening. Felt like a slug in my mouth. I'm like, oh, okay.
Were you kissed? Then was it, or you just mean there was tongue?
There was tongue.
That's a shocker the first time, I have to say, for anyone.
I remember thinking, this tastes terrible.
And then it felt like a slug, you said. I love it. Okay. Who do you respect or admire most?
In what context?
I know. Okay, let's move on. What are you hoping to do next year? One word.
Transcend.
Okay. Weren't you already there? What are you hoping to do next month?
Sell.
Okay. And then what will you do when we leave your studio today?
Paint.
Ah, nice. Okay. You did it. Proud of you. Okay, so now we come to the next part of our interview, and this is the drink ritual. So you're going to prepare or have prepared and present drinks for us to share that are one of your all-time favorite drinks, and we'll get to talk about it. So we'll let you head and prepare and return.
All right.
All right. So I'm here in the lair with an artist, a creator. I'm a little nervous. No, I'm not really nervous. I think this is an exciting part of the interview. So this is where you share with me a favorite drink of yours or a drink ritual.
Okay.
Tell me.
So this is a drink ritual, and creatively it reflects the ideology behind my connection to a lot of my audience. You see, I give audience members the power to create their own narrative.
Ah.
So as the viewer, as the one who's experiencing this
Right.
ritual, it is your power to decide the content and the
Ooh,
meaning of the
okay.
ritual.
Ooh, I like it. Okay, I like it. All right. So, and then I'll notice that in all my other interviews, someone is sharing a drink with me, so I'm assuming I'm being poisoned. We all know this isn't true, but I'm ready. I'm diving in. Okay. First of all, I'm thinking that this drink is going to be soft on the tongue. That, oh, there's a nice fragrance. It has a tiny bit of spice to it, a little bit of sweetness.
She's a food critic on the side.
It is cold, which is, you wouldn't know because no steam was coming out, so I guess people would know. So it's cold. Do I dare? Here I go. It's not as cold as I thought it was going to be. So it's about a little colder than room temp. It's soft tasting. It has a softness and like, I don't know, it tastes like a little bit of spirit. It's like spirited.
There's no alcohol in it.
No alcohol. No, there's no alcohol. This is a different kind of spirit. I like it. Okay. Thank you for sharing it. I'm glad it wasn't beer. Okay, I'm going to set this down. Bear with. Off camera. Okay. Now, we come to the closing of our interview. Although, I'm telling you, I could interview you about 5 more times about different things that you said that I'm curious about. But this is the perfect time to say that these interviews are meant as an intention to allow us to get to know each other better and to bring people closer in. So anyone who wants to know or meet you or talk with you or find out more about you or ask some of these questions, I have no doubt that you will be forthcoming because you are that way. True that?
Yeah.
Yeah, somewhat. Don't get too close, dude. Just see them. Okay, so I want to find out if there is anything that you'd like to promote. So this is a great opportunity because I would love for you to tell people how to find you here in your studio in this beautiful lair and when they can find you. Give them the deets.
Well, I have, every month I have one show at least.
Okay.
And it's part of Georgetown's Art Attack.
Okay.
My studio is part of Equinox Studios. It's down in Georgetown on 5th Avenue, right off Michigan. It's right next to Katsu Burger. People know where that
they know
is.
that, yeah.
Yeah, but if you come
Timing, what, the 6 to 9? Is it 6 to 9 p.m. every other Saturday?
officially, but because of the live bands, it's usually live until about midnight.
Okay.
And I'm here about 80 hours a week, and anyone who wants to come here while I'm working is welcome to, stop by and visit.
Okay, so 6551 5th Avenue South.
Seattle, Washington.
Yeah,
The zip
and
code
the
is 98108.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
And so, and the 2 containers, everyone saw the motorcycle out front. Might be there, might not, but there are 2 giant sculptures, right?
Giant rusty spiral pillars. There's also a sign above the motorcycle with my name on it. If the motorcycle is there, that
Means you're
usually
here.
means I'm here.
If what do you call your motorcycle again?
I call it the Dire Horse.
Okay, so if the Dire Horse is here, then
You can also,
inside.
if you get lost or what have you, you can send me a message on Instagram, direwolf.omega.
Perfect. Okay. So, and that's great because then people can come and see your work. They can come and find out what you're about, and you create amazing jewelry, some of which you're wearing, but there are things that are throughout the studio that are shockingly beautiful.
Everything that I make is on my Instagram. I upload daily, so that's the best place to see everything.
Yeah.
On my website, I'm not putting everything. It's being rebuilt,
Okay.
and I'm only going to have the best of the best.
Okay.
And
So they get the worst and the best on Instagram.
well, still, the worst,
The worst
gets
is pretty
remade,
good.
but yeah.
I hear you. I do that too.
See, you get the most comprehensive
Right.
array of creations.
Yeah, you can see the flow. And do you do custom pieces?
I do.
Potentially.
I do. I've the last commission I did was my rendition of the Fool from the Tarot series.
Oh, that's
See,
cool.
The Fool is a very misleading title because you think of like the village idiot, but in reality he wasn't that. He was someone who he was more of a free spirit. He chose his own path and moved blissfully.
Okay.
So,
I like it. I like it. There's a lot of meaning always, as everyone could tell, in what you do. So now, is there anything that you need, and how would you like to receive it?
I need the thing that I've always needed ultimately, and that is interaction. I mean, if you create something and it isn't perceived,
Right.
it isn't complete. For a work of art to be complete, it has to be perceived.
Yeah, it's got that kind of cycle that you see. Okay. So you want to be perceived through your art, and
I want the
personally as
things
well.
that I create to be experienced.
Yeah. I like it. Okay, perfect. Okay, good. Okay, Direwolf Omega, we are here, interview number 4. Join us next time where we will surprise you again.